Hey everybody, welcome to our webinar on 2021, the year of zero AR. We are going to wait another couple of minutes, another minute or so to let people trickle in to the webinar. So hold tight, get that last glass of water or lunch, maybe breakfast if you're out on the West Coast, a cup of coffee, and we'll get going in about another minute or so. So hold tight, everybody. Thanks. Okay, let's go ahead and get started. Looks like everyone who uh, is going to attend is here. We're a couple of minutes after the top of the hour. Want to welcome everyone to our webinar presented by TimeSolv and LexCharge. 2021, the year of zero AR and how to implement at your firm. We think this is going to be a really exciting webinar, and it could have a really huge impact on your firm's finances in 2021. I'm Scott Clayson. I'm the Director of Marketing here at TimeSolv. For those of you who are not familiar with us, we've been providing web-based time and billing software for law firms and other professional service industries since 1999. And I am joined today by Adam Holden at LexCharge and David Johnson at Modern Family Law. Hopefully you can see them there on your screen. I will introduce them. I'll let them introduce themselves in just a couple of minutes, give a little bit of background and why they're here and why they are experts in the idea of talking about how a law firm can bring their AR down to zero, where nobody's owing you any money. Couple of housekeeping items before we begin. Feel free, you should see a Q&A icon at the bottom of your screen to ask any questions at any time. We may not get to them immediately, but we should have time at the end of the session to answer as many questions as possible. I also have a few poll questions that I want to throw out there during the course of this webinar, because we'd love to hear from you and kind of get a sense of where everyone who's attending this webinar, where they're at when it comes to accounts receivable and how you get paid and kind of this whole concept of making sure that you get paid for the work that you are achieving. So without any further ado, let's go ahead and get started. And let's first kind of do some introduction so you know who we are and you know what exactly we're doing here. I have spent the last 20 plus years off and on developing marketing initiatives and campaigns in several different industries. I took that, I say on when I say off and on, because the off part was I was a high school history teacher for 3 years, kind of during the middle of my marketing career. So I do love doing these webinars because it gives me the opportunity to kind of get back to my teaching roots, and I love being able to present information that I think can be helpful to people. And yes, I do really geek out about trying to cook the perfect steak. My wife and son will attest to you that sometimes I don't even want them to eat the steak. I just want to, like, slice into, open it up, take a nice picture, put it on Instagram or something, because I'm a backyard barbecue enthusiast. I've been with TimeSolv for about almost 5 years now, 4.5 years. And again, TimeSolv is, we're in the business of making sure, and animals would kind of say the same thing, making sure you're getting paid properly for the value that you are providing your clients. And that means providing easy and simple timekeeping tools, easy and simple ways to create and send your invoices, record your payments, allocate those payments so you know which invoices have been paid or not. And that's really our whole mission here at TimeSolv, is to try to make lawyers and their lives a bit easier. So that's me, that's who I am. Adam, I will toss the baton to you and let you kind of, looks like, I don't know if anybody's told you this before, but did you just like come off of Augusta National, and why are you not wearing a green jacket? You kind of have a Dustin Johnson vibe to you there.
One day I will come off of there. I've been playing golf for a really long time, so that green jacket would be like, well, I mean, that would be the dream, right? But yeah. So Scott, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it. So, I've been with LexCharge since, well, the beginning. I helped build the company from the start about 4.5 years ago. And we've been developing, integrated payment processing solutions for all of our partners that we have, as well as TimeSolv. Yeah, and I really do run a 5K every day. This morning I ran a little bit over 4.5 miles, so I guess that was a little bit more than a 5K, but that's my normal morning routine.
Well, that is a for real shout out. Like, and I should mention, like, we are covering the entire country here in this webinar. I am sitting in Minneapolis, Minnesota, so running a 5K outdoors come January is that's heroic for sure.
Yeah.
I know that Adam, you're down in Fort Lauderdale, and
Yeah.
I'll introduce David, who is out in the Bay Area in California. So we're all over the place here. So thanks, Adam. And David, let me let you introduce yourself, and we'll speak a little bit about why we have a lawyer here on this webinar. You're on mute, by the way, David.
I need that t-shirt that says you're on mute. So I've been practicing law since about, I think, 1994, and I have been involved in the management of a law firm basically from that date. And right now I'm the CEO of Modern Family Law, which is a position I've held since, I think it's been 3 or 4 years now. I am out in the Bay Area. We have offices in the Bay Area and in Colorado, 3 in each state. At the beginning of the COVID outbreak, I revived a hobby of mine of building Legos, Star Wars Legos, because you got a lot of free time and you got to make yourself keep busy.
That's awesome.
The converse of that is traveling the world is an option at the moment. But I love traveling. I really work to travel. So we are big fans of work from anywhere. I've worked, at midnight in Paris and even later in Istanbul. And so I love just getting out and traveling the world. And I'm still working on my French, which will be my next trip, hopefully in April, back to Paris. So
yeah, fingers crossed. Right?
Yeah, right.
So, I have, and we'll speak a little bit more in detail about Modern Family Law and their kind of journey, because his firm and what David has done is really the realm of the possible when it comes to law firm collection and rethinking how a firm decides to get paid. And so with that sort of transition, let's take a look at our agenda and what's on the docket here. First, we'll take a look at, why are we all here? Why are you here at this webinar, and decided to attend and try to learn more about the idea of zero AR? Then I'll kind of turn the floor over to David and let him explain the journey that Modern Family Law took and where they are today when it comes to their collections of the work they do. Then in the middle part here of the webinar, we'll get into, and this is where Adam can really speak to this as somebody who's worked with a lot of firms closely, the barriers and obstacles to collecting. And some of them may be more obvious than others, so we'll cover that. And then kind of the real sizzle here is what are the steps you need to achieve for that everlasting happiness, or zero AR as the case may be. And then I'm really excited as well to kind of show you what, for lack of a better word, I consider really next level stuff. And in what TimeSolv in particular is doing to make it as easy as possible to get paid on your terms when you want to for the work that you do. So that's where we're at today. So let's dive right in. Okay, can we all handle the truth here? Okay, let's be honest. Your law firm's collection rate probably isn't very good. And I'm taking some, you see these graphs here, and I took them from Clio, who is the very massive practice management platform, does a legal trends report that pulls data, mines data from their 100,000 plus users that they have, and puts out a report every year. And I thought this chart was really kind of interesting. I think it's really insightful to first look at, and these are interesting conversations, the utilization rate that firms may have. That's a whole different webinar you could do about why only 31% of their workday is going towards billable work. Realization rate is another interesting topic to discuss about, how much are you having to mark off, mark down, when it comes to when you actually send an invoice versus what you're time tracking. But here's the big one over here on the left, like your collection rate. Now, in this legal trends report, the average collection rate for a firm was 88%. 12% of the revenue they should be receiving, they're not getting. And that's got to change in today's world. So I want to do a poll and ask you all, and I've never done a poll here in a Zoom webinar. So let's hope that it works okay. I'm going to launch the poll. You hopefully are seeing this on your screen. What is your current collection rate? Are you in that high 80% range and so on? Oh, this is fun. I see a lot of people are answering, and I can see, I don't think you guys can't see this, but it's moving in real time. I don't know, David and Adam, can you see this poll that I have up on your screen?
I can't see it happening. I just see it popped up in front of me. But I'm very interested to see what the numbers are gonna look like.
So here's what we got. 71% of the people here have already voted, and it's pretty much a tie where it's 25% are in that 70 to 80% collection rate. 25% are in the 80 to 90%. 14% are in that 90 to 100. That's the range you probably want to be, right? And 36% don't know what their collection rate is of the people sitting here. I mean, to me, that's that's super interesting. If you don't know, then that's another issue altogether, which actually leads me to our next bit of information here in talking about collection rate. This is data that we pulled here at TimeSolv of aged invoices. And what that means, of these 1,400 or so, roughly 1,500 random firms we pulled out of our user base, what we see in our system as money that has invoices that have been sent but have not been marked as paid. There's still an outstanding balance on these invoices. And you can see the first 30 days of an invoice, there's about $60,000, and this is average per firm. So this is per of these 1,400, not total. As you get going here to the right, this is the number to me that astounds me. That the average firm using TimeSolv has $500,000 of unpaid invoices that are over 4 months old. Now, there's a bit of a caveat here in that we know, and I'm talking to our support people, and that a lot of firms, you might be getting paid for those invoices. That may not be a real number, that 514, but you're not allocating it towards the invoices. So you're just kind of hoping the balance sheet at the bottom balances out, which it might lead to why so many people on that poll said, I don't know, on their collection rate, because they're not allocating money to their, they might be getting paid, but they don't know for sure. And that's a whole different issue. And it kind of falls in that same category of, if you don't know what your collection rate is, if you have outstanding balances on your invoice, even though you know you're getting paid, obviously you're business, you're still in business, you have problems, you have issues. And that's what we're trying to solve here today.
Mhm. And we can, and with the integration, that also helps as well. When the clients are making those payments, it's going to allocate it, and then also, that gives a little bit less for you have to do at the end.
Right. Yes, exactly. And we'll speak to that here in just a second. Let's talk about the state of the world. We're all, I think, going to be super happy to be putting 2020 behind us here in a couple of weeks. But let's be honest, your business has probably been affected in some way or another by COVID-19. Some businesses are booming because they happen to be in a industry or an area where their product or their services are highly desired now in a shutdown world. Obviously, we know a lot of other industries and businesses are not doing very well. So I have another poll in which I'd like to find out about lost revenue during the pandemic. And on average, how much revenue you estimate you've lost this year since we've gone to a, this kind of shut down home office and that sort of thing. The numbers are pouring in. Right now, the leading category is that 20 to 30% range of lost revenue. Yeah, it's kind of, I'd say it's about a quarter of our respondents are in that 20 to 30%, another quarter in that 0 to 10%, which is good. And then, all the other kind of stratosphere, there's about 17% said none, which is really nice. A couple of people are over 50% of their revenue has been lost. David, obviously you don't have to get into details, but, the impact to your law firm during 2020, how has it been for you all?
The bottom line answer to that question is that we've seen double-digit growth over this year, and the biggest. So I don't want to, I don't think that the bottom line, as far as financially, has been impacted, except for a lack of further growth for us. But I think that it's personnel that's where you see the biggest impact is on your people, and keeping them focused, keeping them moving forward. For us, that's been the biggest challenge, is just making sure that our team stays together and that they continue to push forward. The data that we count everything, right? We count phone calls, web visits, we bring everything in together. And so our metrics are pretty extensive, and we can see the swing in people that are shopping and the people that are hiring and the people that have no money. And you can also tell when the government moves, how that impacts the shoppers going to people that hire. If when we saw the stimulus come through, we saw people hire. Right now that stimulus is tied up, you see people pulling back and keeping their hands on their wallet. So, it's an interesting, someday you're going to look back at this set of data and just, find some jaw-dropping human behavior. But that's our impact, is that we have seen double-digit growth, but we also, have a struggle to keep the team together and keep them focused.
That's a good insight into the human capital component of all of this, beyond just the revenue numbers, which obviously we're kind of focused on here today. I think it's important when you go back and talk about that poll. Like, if you're in that 20 to 30% lost revenue, which was the kind of the winner, and you also answered that your collection rate was like 70 to 80% or whatever, do the math. If there's a way you can increase your collection rate 10%, then that lost revenue is, instead of being 20%, is now 10%. And that's, I think, an important mindset as we get into 2021, is a better collection process. And we've all been sort of forced, perhaps with COVID, to get into that zero AR mentality. And that's where I want to turn it over to you, David, and kind of, if you could briefly sort of explain the journey that Modern Family Law took and what you did, and why you did what you did, and where Modern Family Law is today. Because I think when you're able to, at the end of your kind of stump speech here, able to talk about the collection rate for Modern Family, it's pretty impressive.
So what we do right now is commonly referred to in the legal community as a sustaining or an evergreen retainer, which is essentially where the client comes and posts money with you and you bill your hours, and then you ask the client to pay back, sustain that retainer. You take the money out of the retainer, out of the trust account, and then you ask the client to reimburse the trust account back up to the original amount of the retainer. It is a labor-intensive process. You have to develop a lot of processes to help facilitate that. So what we're moving to, though, in a month will be the retainer as a security deposit, where you don't even touch the security deposit. You put it in the trust account, you leave it there unless the client can't pay their bill, and then the client is on a pay-as-you-go, a true pay-as-you-go process. And then you automate the processes around collecting the AR, the account receivable, and you use the trust, the retainer, as a security deposit, a promise that the client will pay. How we got there was about, I don't know, 6 or 7 years ago. We tried out this idea of a sustaining or an evergreen retainer because we knew other firms and other businesses did that, and other lines of practice did that. And it was a tough change. It's tough going from the traditional retainer where you post $5,000 and then the law firm bills out those $5,000, and then you roll into an accounts receivable stage where there's no retainer left. And so the retainer acts as an advance pay on fees. And it's quite a shift. And I can't say that it's easy to make that shift, but and it revolves around your fee agreement. And then you have this transition period where you're operating under one fee agreement and a new fee agreement. But once you get past that initial stage and you are basically using the retainer as a sustainable or an evergreen retainer, your cash flow is hugely impacted because you get the money from the trust account directly. And then you have advance notice when a client begins to fall behind, right? So if you have a $3,000 retainer and you bill $2,000, but the client can't replenish the retainer back up to $3,000, can't make up that $2,000, you have an opportunity there before you get into the red, right, to work with the client to try and get that money into your trust account before your AR begins to accumulate at all. So you build processes around replenishing those retainers and automating that, and then your cash flow is impacted hugely. What we also do is all of our clients post a credit card on file with us, and we automatically run that credit card to replenish the retainer. And so, for example, a $3,000 retainer, you do $2,000 of work. A bill goes out to the client saying, we did $2,000 of work. We need you to reimburse or to replenish your retainer $2,000. We let them look at the fee agreement or the bill for 3 days, right, to give the client adequate time to review the everything, challenge it, because mistakes get made both directions. And then we automatically process the credit card to sustain the retainer. Again, that gives us a lot of advance notice when somebody's in trouble with their bill, because the charge is going to bounce or something like that is going to happen that's going to trigger the finance department to get directly involved with the client. But you don't slide into accounts receivable as often or as quickly. And so you can manage that situation. That doesn't mean necessarily cut the client off, but it means make arrangements with the client before they get too far behind. So for us, that also has been a huge improvement over the process. So we go from a sustaining retainer, automatic credit card charges, and that leads to a 97% realization rate on what we bill. And so, the first round when you replenish the trust account, you don't get 97%. But for example, this last go around on billing, we got 89%. And so then we spend our time collecting that 11% that was bounced. And so you collect, whatever the remaining number is on that number. And again, you build your processes around improving both the realization rate when you first charge the credit cards, to also the collection rate for the next 30 or 45 days as you collect the amount that they were insufficient. And so we've got this process down pretty tight. We bill twice a month. This time around, I swear it took the finance team like 45 minutes to process the bills. I got notification faster than any time before this last go around. So I think that this process is something that firms could really implement, and it works for everybody. I mean, you give the client lots of time to review the bill and check the bill, but you also increase your cash flow.
I think that, the takeaway there, I think everyone would be like 97%, collection rate kind of thing. But and that's, you've sort of helped foreshadow what are the steps needed to take to achieve that. And a lot of it will come down to that credit card, keeping the credit card on file, not just accepting electronic payment, where that you're hoping that they come to you with their credit card number. Because, and Adam, you'll be able to speak to this, taking electronic payment is not created equal. I mean, there's still a lot of law firms that they got from their bank that, this card swiper device that plugs into a phone jack, and they run, give me last time I had to deal with a lawyer myself personally, that's what I did. I had to call in and she's like, well, hold on, let me walk over to where the machine is and enter the credit card number. I mean, that's fairly old school. And you have a lot of the tools to help with that. So let's talk about the kind of some of those barriers to payment. I think this is a good kind of segue. The kind of reluctance to accept electronic payment. Again, from this Clio Trends report, 65% of consumers prefer to pay through electronic payments. Adam, you do this every single day, working with clients and getting them up and running with a credit card processing through LexCharge. Mm-hmm. How do you overcome that reluctance?
So, I mean, it's going to pinpoint what are they being reluctant about, right? And as we talk to people and over the years, it's really come down to two factors that at least I at least have to overcome on a daily basis, which is going to be cost and understanding. And those two are going to go hand in hand, because understanding is also understanding your costs and how you're being charged. So those are the two major ones that I find that is why they're not going to adapt to digital payments. Now, that's true. It is true. It's a very, very, it's not an easy world to understand is what I'm trying to say. It's not black and white. Every processor is not made equal. And just because someone's offering low cost, that does not mean that it's definitely meant for you. So in this instance, you definitely get what you pay for, and what you're paying for is going to be experience and knowledge in that specific vertical when it comes to credit card processing and ACH processing. So that's where we come into play. We were built specifically for the legal vertical. That is all we do. So we have our partners, just like TimeSolv, where we develop these integrations into the systems to make everything very easy and fluid and very streamlined. Now, when you're talking about processing fees, there's a bunch, and it's not just the rate on the card that you're being charged. It's also the card brand fees. You're being charged for accepting a Visa card. That's it. Like, you could be charged 5 cents for that. That you're being charged for every single little piece. You're being charged for the machine. You're being charged for the processing. You're being charged from the credit card companies. You're being charged from the banks. So all of these little tiny fees, when you get that statement, I mean, most people say they understand it. They don't. I'll say 9 times out of 10, people do not understand what they're looking at. It's like looking at a telecommunications bill. You don't know what half those line items are going to be. So over the years, we've actually developed a very, very nice flat rate system that's very easy to understand, very easy to calculate out your month-end expenditures. And that's it. We've developed a flat rate, 3%, 30 cents, $2 in eCheck. That's it. There's no surprise fees. There's no monthly fees, PCI compliance fees, location fees, nothing. You only pay for it when you use it, and it's completely integrated into the TimeSolv system, 100%.
Let's talk about, I know we've dealt with this a lot with people who, run credit cards, and they ask this question because they want to be able to do it when they invoice, is passing the processing fee on to your client.
Yeah, it's a question I get asked every day. I would be lying if I said I didn't get it asked every day. It's going to really come down to how you run your firm, if it's legal in the state that you are practicing in, and that you check with your state bar association. They're going to tell you if you can do it. And then I would then suggest to check with the state as well. Just because the bar association says you can do it doesn't mean the state that you live in and practice in says that you can do it. To me and to a lot of other attorneys that I do speak to, a lot of other businesses, it's a cost of doing business. You are pulling in more money, even though you may be spending a fee at the end of the month, you're getting paid. So, when you balance that out to, okay, well, I'm going to wait for a check to come in the mail or my client to show up at my front door with their invoice in their hand and cash in the other hand. I mean, that's a dream. It's not going to happen.
Right.
But,
Yeah.
it is what it is. I mean, you're paying for a service and you're getting paid. That's the biggest thing. But if that is something that you are looking to do, once again, check with the state, check with your state of bar association. They should have some verbiage for you if you're going to be putting that in your retaining contracts. And then, if there's excess questions, they can always get in contact with me and we can guide them in the right direction.
I think the big thing on that is, I like the idea, the cost of doing business, I think, is the one that really kind of resonates. You have to meet people where they're at. That's a big thing we've kind of tried to push at TimeSolv is, the way even you communicate with people, and people expect to be able to pay. This the ease and convenience to be able to pay via a credit card or even ACH. And, I always think I live here, in South Minneapolis. There's a gas station right down the street, and it's got to be one of the only gas stations left in the world that doesn't take credit cards at the pump. You have to walk in still and pay, and they have a little sign there, and they've had it there for I've lived in this neighborhood now, almost 20 years. But they've always had this little sign saying, due to the always increasing cost of credit card, we do an extra surcharge if you use a credit card. They pass on and I'm like, you guys are, and the thing is, there's another gas station. It's a more modern, it's one of those chains, is like another quarter mile down the road. And I'm like, how are you guys even staying in business and where your business could be by accepting credit card payments? And the other thing that resonates with me is the idea okay, you pay 3% flat fee on your processing fees, but if that allows you to close that collections gap by say 10%, okay, so you're only clearing 7% of that, but you still are clearing 7% more income. So it's those processing fees are going to more than pay for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it is a way, and David, I think you spoke to this even before we started this webinar, that, it's just not a good look to pass that on to your client.
Yeah, I would just say, don't do it. You don't want to nickel and dime your clients on one hand, on the customer service side. How many times do you see when you go to pay a bill online and they have that little surcharge there for credit card processing? How do you feel about that when you see that? You get angry about it. You're like, I'm not going to pay that. And I think San Francisco does that with their parking tickets, actually.
Not that you have personal knowledge of this, right?
I'm sitting on my counter over here, but it irritates you, and you don't want to create that animosity with your clients. And so my personal business recommendation would be, forget it. Ethically, I think it's fraught with ethical problems. And you're just, are you accepting a payment in Alabama that's processing in Colorado? Do you violate the rules in Alabama? Or do you violate the rules in Colorado? I mean, who needs that headache? Just build it into your processes and forget about it.
Yeah.
So I want to launch another poll asking if you accept electronic payments. And while you're answering that, there's a couple questions that have come in from some people. and I think some of these are directed, I think, more specifically to David. Like, do you have a couple of people have asked about forms or sample agreements that set up on that new process, and we don't have any here at TimeSolv, and David, I'm not sure if you have any kind of stock thing for the evergreen retainer agreement, but there's probably some things you could find online, templates to use, I would assume.
Yeah, I mean, I have the clause that we use for sustaining retainer, and I can make that clause available. We are changing that, of course, with the next process, and that clause, the new language, we haven't implemented yet, so I wouldn't want to share that yet.
So that actually leads to another question somebody had. How will your process change when you shift to security deposits in trust?
Yeah, I mean, it is a big shift, because it does impact your cash flow in that you don't get the immediate funds out of the trust account. You have to wait until you run the credit cards. But we have such experience knowing exactly how much is going to come through in the credit cards. We can plan that out. And what we have to do is build in 3 days of cushion that we didn't have before. And so it does change a little bit, but it actually, once you're through that difficult part at the beginning, I would suspect it'll take us 2 billing cycles to get that, kind of built in. It really simplifies it, because no longer do you have to go through and do the trust accounting for every single thing. You only have to worry about the ones who couldn't make their payment or their cards were rejected within a certain time period. So it simplifies the process for our accounting team. And then there's also the real reason that we're doing it is because it's better for the clients. Because I don't have to, if I have a client who pays their bills, right, and they pay all their bills, why do I want a $10,000 retainer from that person? I don't need, I don't need to pull that amount of money from a person who has good credit, a job, cash in the bank, right? I don't need that kind of security. So if you begin to view a retainer as security that somebody's going to pay their bill, it's a complete mind shift in how you view the risk that a client's ability to pay their bill represents to the firm.
Well, the good news is, I think I'm sharing the poll results here that 78% of our attendees today do accept electronic payments. So that's good news. I know I didn't put this in the slide, but in that Clio trend reports, they report 73% of the firms using on Clio are doing electronic payments. So now the next step is going to be, like I said before, not every electronic payment method is created equal, and that's what we'll talk to here a little bit. Let's talk again about some of the barriers to payment methods, like how do you bill? The method matters, right? Are you still printing and mailing invoices? I can tell you specifically, when people were scrambling to their home offices back in March, we got phone calls from people saying, like, I don't have enough ink in my little inkjet printer in my home office to print all the invoices I have to print this month. What do I do? Because they were still printing hundreds of invoices and mailing them every month. So if you're not using a system where you can quickly email invoices to your clients, that's a process to reconsider. And obviously, any kind of billing software out there should allow you to email invoices to your clients. That should be the first no-brainer. And that was the question, when our support person mentioned this, my first question is, like, did you ask that person why they don't just email their invoices? And part of it, of course, is they hadn't collected email addresses necessarily for everybody, or the billing person who specifically should be getting the invoice they didn't have that email address. So the method matters, how you actually bill. I need to stop sharing results here, don't I? Okay. Let's go on then to how often you bill. And you mentioned this in passing, David. How often does Modern Family Law bill?
Twice a month.
Twice a month, like clockwork, right? I mean, you send out the invoices on what, the first and the second and the first and 15th, I would assume? First
and 16th, or the next business day. Yeah, we email everything, a cover email plus the statement. And yeah, it lays it all. It gives you the opportunity to market to the client as well.
So we should talk a little bit about that, the 3 days, that you have to that buffer zone. That's one thing too. I think I was actually in a meeting with a number of practice management advisors at various bar associations, and I was explaining this whole idea and concept, and they, had a variety of, how many days. They felt 10 days would be more comfortable. But that's one thing as well. When Adam, you mentioned about checking with your bar association about processing fees, this is another thing to probably check with your bar association to see what kind of, if there is any ethics rulings on how long you can give a window of opportunity before you can actually run that invoice. I will say one person had a great suggestion that I'm going to bring to our developers, and that was, how about when you send the email with the invoice, there's a little button in the email that says that click this button to approve the invoice. So then you could run it whenever you want it. That would be kind of next level as well.
That'd be pretty neat.
Yeah, that time frame. I don't know any state that sets out a particular time frame. We have our bank of ethics lawyers too, because we operate in 2 different states. I think it's wise to have that counsel, and they always want more time. They always want you to give the client 30 days. But in family law in particular, that is virtually impossible. And
right.
And so, the 3-day time period it's 3 days, 3 business days. So it usually ends up being 5 days total.
And that's a good question that, because family law by nature, you're dealing with individuals, right? I mean, you're not necessarily corporations. And somebody did put in a question that 95% of their client base is companies. And a lot of companies, they don't want to pay by credit card. They do checks. They cut checks. They have a whole department that does that. And they have a solid collection rate, 94%. And they wanted to know, like, hey, if we went to a sustainable retainer and credit cards, would we need to offer a 3% discount to those who still want to pay by check? So sort of the opposite of that gas station, kind of analogy I use. And I, sure, you certainly could, I suppose, or you could make it, an eCheck, right? That you take an ECH payment in which it's with LexCharge, it's what, $2 per transaction kind of thing.
Yep, $2 per transaction. It doesn't matter the size. It doesn't matter if it's $2,000 or $20,000. You're still only going to pay $2. So, it's a good way to offset your fees as well. And to go back to that, I typically see people who are corporate lawyers, things like that. Those larger transactions, and usually the corporate accountants don't want you to use a credit card, so you'll get those paper checks.
Right, and I think that's important. When people talk about electronic payments, I think we all mentally quickly go to a credit card and kind of skip past the idea that, you can take checks electronically. Whether you call it an ACH payment or an e-check, it's all kind of the same. It is pretty much the same. And we've all done it before, where, I've put in my, banking information. I just take a check and you have the routing number and your account number and away we go. So that is important to understand. You still can take payment on your terms, even if they're still paying you, your clients, by check. We kind of talked a little bit about that net 30, like what are the payment expectations that you have? Because that isn't one barrier, and what are you doing if they don't pay their bill? And David, you had some interesting insight, specifically in the legal world, about the reluctance for law firms to sue clients for non-payment.
Yeah, I mean, they teach you this in law school, that you shouldn't go after clients, and that it's bad news, for a variety of reasons. And this is kind of built into our profession. If it's very common when you go to get malpractice insurance for the carrier to ask, do you sue your clients for AR? And so a lot of law firms have the policy, we just don't sue. I can tell you from personal experience, clients figure that out. And then the other thing is when you actually have this case that you file, or a collection agency files on your behalf, the judges don't like it, and they don't want to help lawyers collect their money against somebody who might not have that money. So a lot of law firms just by simple operational procedure or by procedure, they won't pursue a client who falls behind in court. They'll do everything else, but they won't go to court.
Yeah, so I think you need to kind of reconsider this is why, and I think the idea of, and this is what we're going to kind of show here next, the idea of you get paid when you decide you're going to get paid, and not waiting around based on a number of days or hoping that the check's in the mail or that they're going to call you with their credit card number. So let's talk about that. What are the exact steps for achieving, that zero AR, or as close as we can get to zero AR? 97% I think most people would take. Obviously, start accepting electronic payments if not already, and I'll put on the caveat that electronic payments through an online processor like a LexCharge. I mean, obviously, we think LexCharge is a fantastic tool to do that, and not necessarily relying on taking electronic payments where somebody has to call you and give you that information, and you have to hand enter it in some, whether it's an online tool or whether it's an old school, old-fashioned swipe machine or something that you punch in the numbers. Start accepting those electronic payments. Secondly, you want to make sure that there is a clear payment method and terms, like David talked about. It's laid out very specifically. We're going to bill you on the 1st and the 16th. We're going to wait 3 days. Then we're going to run the credit card unless we hear otherwise from you. That all can be laid out during that whole intake process when you're bringing on a new client. It's just part and parcel of taking on new work, is having that clear payment method and terms. So if you're going to be paying by check, here's what you have to do. If you're going to be paying by credit card, here's what you have to do. And that includes, again, providing like some sort of, David, I'm sure you guys have a credit card authorization form of some sort to store that payment information, right?
Yeah, it's part of our fee agreement. They complete that at the time they hire us.
And then obviously you want to run the payments, on the agreed upon terms. So let me show you how that looks here in TimeSolv, for example. Okay, so I'm in the TimeSolv account here, or the TimeSolv software, and I have a group of sent invoices. Now I have already collected, have all the intake arrangements set up. I have the payment information. So to store them in TimeSolv, you come over to your clients and matters. Well, first of all, I should back up. First of all, you want to make sure you have your LexCharge hooked up, right? So you go to our integration area, and I want to make sure you had that. And this is where you can actually apply for a LexCharge account right within TimeSolv. Get that all taken care of. You get approved anywhere from a couple of hours to maybe up to 48 hours at max. Then you can start running credit cards through TimeSolv. You go into your clients and matters. You pick a particular client, let's say, and in TimeSolv, you have a payment settings tab. Excuse me. Now this is where I'm just going to enter the credit card that I got from them during the intake, or their eCheck ACH information. I enter it right here at the client level. Now, whenever I've sent out any invoices, I can run a payment. In the current world of TimeSolv, we have a sent invoice screen where it's very easy to see for a particular time period. In this case, September 1st, I have, what is it, maybe a dozen or so invoices. I can look at my balance column and I can see that 2 of them have not yet been paid, or 2 of them have been paid. Excuse me. The rest have not. This is essentially a running AR that you can use in TimeSolv. But like what David, as a customer for TimeSolv does, his accounting person will come in here, and for each of these invoices where they have a credit card on file, they can click over here to this little dollar icon. It'll take them to the payment screen. It'll show that the payment method is the credit card that is on file. It has the dollar amount, 1140. I'm going to run that credit card payment now. I've just now run a payment. I'm going to allocate it to an invoice. And now we have a paid invoice. When we come back over here, that Amir test whatever matter is now going to be marked as paid. Okay, 1140 here. However, here's the kind of catch. David, how many invoices do you guys send a month?
We send about 700 a month.
So doing 700 of these individual payments, how long does it take your people now to do it?
just a few minutes to send them out. I mean,
Well, to send them out, but to run the credit card payment and allocate.
Oh, right now, I think it takes them a couple of hours to get it from beginning to end. Previously, before we had this option, it would take 2 days.
Okay, so they've cut down from a couple of days to a couple of hours. Thanks to David and some of the work he's done in collaborating with us, the next evolution of this is, and this is, I'm going into our dev environment now. So I was telling David and Adam, our dev guys are kind of wringing their hands that I'm showing the public something that's just in development right now. But it's the same situation. I'm looking at a sent invoice screen. I have a number of invoices that have been paid. I have a bunch that have not been paid. I have all of these credit cards on file. In fact, in this new iteration we're going to be releasing probably next week, I can even search for invoices of those clients that have a payment method on file. So it can clear out those clients that I have a different payment method. I don't have a payment on file. So you can see here, I have these, 5 invoices, I think here that I want to pay. So now I'll just be able to check them all if I want, right? These have already been paid. And now we have a pay button up here. I click that and it's going to run the credit cards. And now all of these have been paid. I just got $10,000 in how many seconds?
About 2 seconds.
Yeah, about 2 seconds. I just made 10 grand in 2 seconds by doing them all at once. So that's the next level stuff that I was talking about. This is something that our CEO, Raz, is so excited. We're actually filing a patent for this, of being able to do batch payment processing within TimeSolv. Here are the steps to reiterate again. Make sure you have a credit card processor like a LexCharge in place. When you bring in your clients and matters, or excuse me, when you bring in your new clients, have the payment arrangements up front, collect payment information. Enter that payment information here within your system. When you send out your invoices, whether it's 3, 5, 10 days in which the agreement was that unless I hear from you, I'm going to charge your card for that invoice. Then you can come in here and you can do in batch hundreds of invoices at once, hit pay, it's going to run through. They're all going to get paid. Every invoice is going to be marked as paid. You don't have to do that extra step of allocating, and your AR could easily, simply be brought down to as close to zero as we can possibly get. I think obviously, as you can tell, I'm pretty excited about this. And David, I need to thank you because I know you've pushed us to kind of make this happen. And Adam, I know with the work that you guys do at LexCharge to make sure that everyone can see clearly, what charges are come in. You can go to a Lexboard dashboard and see all of that money coming in. You can even access it right through your TimeSolv account. When you have an integration up and running like you do in our dev environment here. I'm not sure if I even have it. Yeah, we have a LexCharge, and go to the LexCharge portal and log in and see all that. I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to log in, or I haven't even done it. So you can go and see all that stuff.
You could log in if you want.
No, I'm not sure if we have. We could.
I can give you my login.
Let's not worry about it right now. We only have a few minutes, but the whole concept of being able to seamlessly run your credit card payment, see those payments in both TimeSolv, see the money as it rolls into your account via LexCharge. This is the mentality and the process you could use in 2021. Now, we're not the only ones that allow you to individually pay off invoices and store credit cards on file. I know Rocket Matter does it. There's others out there that allow you to do that. But the ability to do it with just a couple of clicks, that is kind of groundbreaking stuff in the legal world specifically. And we're very excited to be able to roll this out. I've been told, well, you can see it's in our dev where we got it built out. It obviously needs to go through our quality assurance and everything else before we release it to production, but that should be happening at the latest, I would say, maybe late next week, although it's a holiday week, for sure, the first week of December. This will be live to all of TimeSolv customers and anyone who is interested in TimeSolv. So questions from anybody? I know we've had a number of people that have asked questions throughout. Does anybody have other questions here? We have about 5 minutes or so left, and I'm I always feel good if I don't run over on a webinar because I tend to talk too much. So does anybody have any other questions who's attending here? I always learned one technique as a teacher was like to have the pregnant pauses and let people actually like make it uncomfortable almost, you know, to do that. One question that came in, how do you convert a current client? I guess, do you mean when you say convert, you mean to this type of process? You know, David, how did you guys deal with clients, you know, in midstream where the intake letter of agreement didn't have this payment processing? How did you deal with that?
Well, one thing you can do is send out an amendment to your fee agreement and ask the clients to sign those amendments. Otherwise, you can operate two systems in parallel until the old system rolls off. But what I've found is if you can do an amendment to the fee agreement, ask the clients to sign it, and give them something in exchange for that, you know, make something, you know, make some creative arrangement that entices them to move to the new process. I mean, it's not like you're getting more money from the client.
Right, you're just getting them in a different way.
You're getting it in a different way, and it is a simpler way of getting it for everybody involved. And you're not surprising them with the charges because they do have 3 to 5 days to take a look at it. What we found is clients really prefer it, so I think that you have to send out my business strategy would be to send out an amendment to your fee agreement, and in exchange for them signing that, give them some benefit, entice them to do that.
And that somebody else chimed in the question that individual clients may be more keen on this concept. Do corporate clients kind of buy into this? Or I'm not sure if you can really speak to that so much.
Yeah, I know nothing about that.
Yeah, and to be honest, I think it goes back to what David said. If you're a corporate client, if you give some sort of incentive or some sort of creative reason for them to move to this new arrangement, I think I don't see any reason why a corporate client wouldn't be any more adaptable to this type of arrangement than an individual. Adam, somebody asked if you could go over the Lex charge fees again, the Lex charge charges.
Of course, of course. So it's a flat 3% and 30 cents a transaction, and $2 per eCheck or ACH, and that's it. There's no additional monthly fees or any of those hidden fees that you might find, like location fees, card brand fees, and all those surprise fees. So we eliminated all of those.
Makes it easier to read that, you know, that you know, as you said, kind of your mobile phone bill kind of thing at the end of the month, right? When you know it's doesn't matter what kind of card, it's going to be 3%, it's going to be 30 cents, and so on. And that is when you get into the details. Yeah, I mean, Amex is super high in its processing fee versus, you know, somebody's just debit card, which is much lower type of fee, and so on. And I think the easy way too around it is if you're not comfortable with all those fees, turn it towards an ACH kind of thing, an e-check, where, you know, it's just a flat $2. Doesn't matter, like you said, doesn't matter if it's 20,000 or doesn't over 200. It's just a $2, you know, processing arrangement. Just quickly, so I don't think I mentioned this at the top. This is being recorded. I am going to send out a link to those so they can watch it again, or more importantly, pass it on to others who may be interested in watching it. Specifically, someone who said, "How do I get my boss to see this?" So we will be sending that out later. Yeah, so people are asking, so do you just build the authorization into your engagement letter or the fee arrangement up front? And the answer is yeah, right? I mean, that's kind of the secret sauce is having that authorization is just one component of your engagement letter, right?
Yeah, you build the terms in there, you put the authorization. If there's a third-party authorization that's required, that's built in there too. Yeah, I mean, lay it all out in your fee agreement, all the terms, all the dates, times, everything.
Okay, great. Well, excuse me. I want to thank everybody for your questions. If you have any more questions, you know, you can visit us, timesolv.com, lexcharge.com. You know, Modern Family Law, David, we, you know, more than happy to, I'm sure, answer any questions You send an email to, I can send this in the chat to all the panelists. You can certainly send an email to me, scott.clayson@timesolv.com. Adam at LexCharge is just more simple. Adam at
Yeah, actually,
LexCharge.com.
it changed. So it's Adam. It's Adam.Holden at LexCharge.
So it just changed. That was like yesterday, right? That it changed?
Yeah, it changed yesterday.
LexCharge just moved to a different email server yesterday. So yeah, there it is. So thank you all for your time. I will send out to all of the all the attendees a link to watch this. David, Adam, I really appreciate your guys' time in sharing this. Everyone, as somebody, I heard this last week, let's stay positive and test negative. All right. So have a great rest of your week and a great Thanksgiving holiday.
Awesome.
All right, you too, Scott and Adam. It was
Thank you,
nice
guys.
working with you.
All right. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much.